Home Life. It's Home Plus Life podcast. We're not here to just talk about the latest trends. We're gonna break through the myths and put some facts on the table. Cause when it comes to real estate, you need to be well informed. So now it's time to get serious and talk market trends. Here we go. Sure enough, we'll go down a rabbit hole and talk about something cool that has caught our attention. It's JTM. Welcome everybody, let's dive right in.
See, I think the time that you need to be really concerned is when I get it right every single time. That's when you know that there's something going wrong with me.
That's when I'll ask you if you'd like a peanut butter sandwich.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you've been abducted by aliens.
Exactly. I've been taken over.
Anyone listening, like, this will have been edited out by D, and as he's producing the podcast. But instead of hitting the Home Plus Life podcast intro button, she's hit the JTM intro to start the podcast, and then gone, oh wait, whoops, and
my bad.
This is episode 28, ladies and gentlemen. Episode 28. If she ever gets the button pressing right, we're going to administer the peanut butter test to see if she's been abducted by aliens.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I know some are going, what's the peanut butter test?
She hates peanut butter, so if we administer the peanut butter test and she eats it, then she's an alien. She's been body snatched.
That's right. Yeah.
This is a predetermined test that we've agreed upon just to test, and if anybody's.
If I've ever been body snatched.
Yeah. If she's an alien and been replaced.
All right. So we're going to be talking build to rent.
Yes. It's kind of an interesting topic, build to rent. I'm looking forward to this one.
Well, I'm excited for you to actually, educate me, given the fact that this is the first time that I've read the run sheet.
It's not actually common in Australia. There's only maybe half a dozen projects across Australia. So we'll get into that and I'll explain what it is.
Cool. And then the whole, it's the peanut butter test on society, isn't it? AI taking over.
Yeah, that's a long road to draw. But we're going to talk about AI and taking over.
AI is taking over.
We're going to talk about where AI is at right now and what the future
I don't see it as
like.
taking over. I see it the possibility and potential of people being able to upskill. But that's just my personal opinion.
We'll talk about that.
But let's go and hear from our sponsors.
Yeah, let's see. The pressure's on. Can she get the right button?
Ready to sell your home? Don't make the rookie mistake of jumping in blind. The first step on your journey is critical: research. You need to know what your house is really worth to get the best deal. And that's where checkmyhouseprice.com.au comes in. With a free house price report, you'll get all the juicy market intel, recent sales data, and other must-have info to help you win big when selling your home. Don't gamble on your home's worth. Make checkmyhouseprice.com.au the first step in your successful selling journey. Visit us today and get your free house price report.
Sorry, I was just reading the run sheet. What is declingen?
What? Where? Huh?
You've got BTR starting to become more viable due to investment declining. Yeah.
It's a typo. Yeah.
I'm
it's
really concerned that
Probably
your spelling
caused by
is starting to really decline. Is it supposed to be decline? I'm guessing it's supposed to be decline.
Declining.
Oh, okay. So we
Yes.
Right, okay. Well, I'll forgive you.
Yeah.
Still not acceptable, but I'll forgive you. All right, so build to rent.
Yes.
Obviously, it's pretty, it's pretty self-explanatory.
Is it? How about you explain it then? What is it?
Well, that people build to rent.
No, not so much people. So when we're talking about build to rent,
or governments build to...
No, more corporations, commercial entities. So
is this what you were talking to me the other day
yes,
about?
Yes,
right,
absolutely it is. So essentially, at its core, a company will come along and they will typically build an apartment building.
Yeah.
Right. And rather than sell it off, traditionally in Australia in particular, they've sold off 70, 80+% of those apartments.
Mm-hmm.
This flips it on its head where they build the apartment building specifically to rent it out and to manage it themselves and control it and run it.
would this not sort of fall into the whole, like in America where they've literally got companies that own...
Very popular in Europe, very popular in the States.
Yeah.
It is. And look, there's some pros and cons to the model.
Well, a lot of people do complain about the upkeep isn't there because there's no one actually policing it.
Well, that's one of the problems that we're facing in Australia. There's legislation in the UK and the US on how it needs to be managed and handled. And yes, there is a problem with the policing of it, which is one of the cons, right? That's one of the downsides is you've got corporations that, for the most part, can be faceless and hard to track down and hard to hold to account, that are running these apartment buildings and people's homes effectively, and it's very hard to police. So that is kind of one of the cons that are there. There are some pros as well, in the sense that this is a way to address the housing shortages that we're facing in this country at the present point in time. There's a lot of security that can come with it when they're run properly. And I stress, most of the pros we're going to talk about are all under the caveat of when they are run properly.
Yeah.
Because one of the big benefits that people have reported in Europe and the US is longer term leases. So they can have that security, they can have that stability. And that long term lease can also lock in their rent for longer periods of time and so forth. So that means that there's that greater level of security, which I can see appealing in a market like what we've got in Australia at the moment, particularly in the capital cities and the main metro areas, where there is a bit of a rental squeeze on and a rental crisis happening. And there's a housing crisis in general. One of the big cons or concerns is a lot of these build to rent or BTR apartment buildings are being built for the higher end of the market.
Yeah.
They're building these kind of communities. And if you imagine it like an apartment building that is designed to be a community, much like a retirement community or a retirement village is, but aimed at younger people. And so it has all of the facilities, it has all of the, like the pools, the gyms, all that sort of stuff that a younger demographic would want.
Yeah. So isn't that kind of sort of what NRAS is?
No, NRAS is affordable housing dictated by the government.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's standalone housing.
Yeah, but
there is some apartments, but it's not NRAS because this is commercially owned and run.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying, that it would be similar sort of thing. It's just not the government that's owning it. It's commercial.
Well, I mean, no, because the government doesn't own NRAS properties. The government is effectively helping build them at a significantly cheaper rate.
Right.
Right. And they're incentivizing investors to build them. That's my understanding of NRAS. I could be wrong on that, but I haven't dived deep into that.
Yeah.
But that was my understanding when it first came out.
Right.
And I was a real estate agent when it first came out, so it could have changed over the years. But this is commercialized housing in the sense that a company is running this to make a profit.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a good and bad thing. Obviously, the better the better the facilities are upkept, the higher the rents they're going to be able to charge. And so there's an incentive there to upkeep that. That's assuming that we don't have a housing crisis like what we do now, where the supply and demand is so out of whack that you could literally probably put up a cardboard box and charge rent on it.
Yeah.
Right. And so is this going to be the solution to the housing crisis? No. It could be a factor in alleviating some of the stress.
I would say it would be, it would turn down the pressure valve.
I think so, a little bit. I think it's got the opportunity to do that. Currently around Australia, there are 1,859 apartments across 6 projects, and 4 states have them as at February of 2023. So we've got 3 pilot projects approved in Brisbane. There's some in Victoria, and I think there's one in New South Wales.
Because when you think about it, it would make sense that you would have... So if you've got people in the city or closer to cities, because let's face it, there's a lot of people who do rent closer to the city because, it's easier. That's where they're needing to be close to because of work and the likes. So to have something close to the city and have those pilot projects in Brisbane, I would be interested as to how many apartments are going to be there.
Well, there's 1859 apartments across 6 projects. So, I mean, you'd say 300 apartments per project is just as an average.
Yeah. So, but how many? I suppose the other thing too that it does come down to it here in Australia, we do really have that whole, like we aren't big apartment dwellers.
Yeah, look, I think that's changing.
We've got space.
Yeah.
And having somewhere for the kids to run around, having the ability of, because, there's a lot of older people who help out looking after the younger kids who tend to live further out because they're wanting it not to be noisy and all the rest of it. So I just, there may be a shift happening when it comes to the cultural side of living, not just in a city, but also in an apartment block. Because, I mean, quite honestly, I look at it and go, yeah, it would be great on some level because, if I'm wanting to go out for the night, I don't want to have to drive. So I have the ability of just going downstairs and walking out. I don't have a garden to look after, to upkeep. I don't have to worry about the grass dying.
Yeah, look, and that's
I
one
don't
of the
have
big
to worry
benefits.
about roofing. I don't have to worry about all those things because it's all part of the body corp. But at the same time, I also look at it and go, there's only a certain amount of places that you can actually go before you just this apartment is not big enough.
Yeah, and, look, and I think you're coming at it from the fact that we're a family of 6. And there's that can get quite claustrophobic even in a 5-bedroom house, right? So I get where you're coming from, but I think there's a massive shift that is happening because people are valuing quality of life more than owning property in a lot of areas around Australia. And I think part of that too is that as millennials, we've been told we can't own property, like we're never going to be able to afford it.
Well, the other thing too is that type of living is huge in Tasmania. I know that for a fact, that even though they go and do up their houses and stuff,
everywhere in Tasmania is close together.
No. I'm talking about the whole, you work to have a lifestyle.
Yes.
You don't work in order to keep a house.
And that's very much Europe as well.
Yeah.
And a lot of parts of Europe, because going down this BTR rabbit hole, I started to look at where it was working.
Yeah.
And a lot of European countries do not have the same obsession with owning property as what Australians do and what Americans do. And there's a lot more emphasis on living life and enjoying life rather than working your ass off to own property and putting yourself in all that kind of debt. And in fact, I saw somewhere in some countries, only 30% of the population actually own property, which is ridiculous. Like it's
well, the other thing too, when you think about it,
it's ridiculous to us. Like it's insane.
It would also be a flip because, like you're saying, in Europe, it's majority people rent.
Yeah.
Which means that
in some
there's
countries
not,
in Europe.
Yeah, there's not that demand there, but they know that they need to house. So therefore, having a commercial development actually happen where it's just there to rent.
Yeah.
Would also help change that whole mindset of you have to, when you grow up, when you get your big girl or big boy pants, you have to be very responsible and have your own abode where you have to pay for it and you have to be in debt.
Yeah. And if you look at it, like if you go back to one of the points we made when we were talking about the buying a castle, I think at 24, in the buying a castle episode, one of the key considerations was there's not the same capital growth. And that's because there's not the same drive to own property. That supply and demand issue is not as much of an issue in Europe as what it is in Australia in a number of areas. So, look, I think there's pros and cons to it. I think that there's a lot of people that will embrace that lifestyle. I think, there's, when you think about all of the chores that go along with maintaining a home, right? And if you own it, you're on the hook for that.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're leasing it, you're not.
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot of those chores that there's a lot of people out there who would be quite happy to just let go of them and be like, you know what? I don't want to do lawns. I don't want to do gardens. I don't want to do maintenance. That can be the building management's problem. I just want to live my life. I've got a nice apartment, nice view, That's all I want. I'm happy.
Close to everything.
Close to everything. And because I don't think BTR is going to work out away from metro areas. I think it's going to have to be fairly centralized. But when you consider...
Well, if you have it close to public transport, which, let's face it, within the... not just the CBD, but I would say greater Brisbane area would probably be like Brisbane. I'm talking like Brisbane. I'm not talking like Wynnum or Manly or any. I'm talking like Brisbane.
Yeah. So you're talking sort of if you were to draw, Cooperoo, Indooroopilly and round.
I'm actually talking about like the city of Brisbane, meaning that, like Roachdale is part of Brisbane, right?
So you're talking the council area.
Yeah, I'm talking a council area because when it comes to public transport...
See, I think this would work fantastically in Sydney because everything's so... I mean, Sydney's one of the worst planned
I'm surprised that Sydney doesn't already do it.
They've got a pilot project. Build to rent has not been a thing in Australia until recently because it hasn't been economically viable, right? It hasn't been something that they can make a profit from. Now it's starting to look that way because of the way rents have skyrocketed.
Yeah.
So
especially considering that, when it's come to rent, I didn't ever think that it was supposed to be literally majority, like when I mean majority, I mean like 80-90% covering of the mortgage, the repayment.
It's always been whatever you can get for it. I don't understand.
Well, whatever you get for it, but to the point where it is essentially someone's income.
Yeah, that's the whole idea.
No,
like
if you've got hold on, if you've got a 2-income family, right? Yeah. And of that, one income is completely removed just to pay mortgage in order to live. That means that technically speaking, that's only a 1-income family in order to be able to survive.
No, it's not. It's still a 2-income family because part of survival includes the roof over your head. If you've got a mortgage and you're paying, and that's the cost of your mortgage, that's a choice you made. And you're still a 2-income family. You've just chosen to assign that level of your income. And look, I get it. Mortgages go up and down, rents go up and down and everything like that. But I don't understand.
Up and
down? Sometimes they do come back. But I don't understand where you're coming at it going from. You weren't aware that rent was meant to cover.
I just didn't believe that it was supposed, like literally covering that amount of.
I'm sorry, but
mortgage.
that's no, absolutely it should be. Like if you're an investor, only if you've got income coming in from elsewhere, do you really want to be engaged in a negative gearing situation, right? Negative gearing is when the rent that is you're being paid falls short of what you're paying for the property, and there's some sort of tax fancy shit you can do to lower your taxable income, right? As a result of that. That's effectively a very poor layman's explanation of negative gearing. I'm not an expert on it. But a positively geared property is a property that's paying you, right? So it becomes a source of income for you.
Maybe it's because there's been, because it did have such a massive jump in quite a short period of time.
There's always been positively geared properties and negatively geared properties.
It's literally just because of what people have paid within the area that has just, when it comes to rent.
Supply and demand.
You're not getting what I'm saying. Anyway, moving on.
I'm not. But what you're saying is...
Anyway, moving on. So, perks.
Yeah, look, I mean, there's some perks to it. There's greater facilities, greater community. All of this is managed, right? So it's just there for you, just to use and enjoy and engage with. There's a stability we talked about before with longer-term tenancies and that consistent management as well. The fact that there's less chores, which I know will appeal to a lot of people. Obviously, you're paying for it, but that does appeal. The downsides are, look, what we're seeing at the moment is they're targeting high-end. So it's not going to solve the bottom end of the supply and demand crisis.
Which is a bit stupid.
Well, it is and it isn't. I mean, for pilot projects to work and gain momentum and to gain that branding and that recognition and that positive spin in the marketplace, you kind of have to start with the high end and then you bring in the lower end because then people have that idea that this is going to be really good. If you start at the low end, people are going to accuse you of building slums.
I just hope that the way that they look after the high end is the same as the way that they look after the low end.
It won't be the same. It costs more to look after the high end. But
what I mean is that the same effort that they put in, not costs, effort.
Effort requires cost. This is a capitalist economy.
This is true. So right? I just look at it and just go, this is another utopian way of looking at things. No, it's
not a utopian way of looking at things at all. Essentially, the higher end stuff will have more facilities. They'll have a higher finish on things and a greater level of community, greater level of
that's not what
functionality in the community.
I'm talking about
the lower end will literally just be a building with an apartment.
No, that's not what I'm talking about. When I'm talking about effort, I'm saying that if a high-end person goes, oh, my tap is needing to be fixed, they get the same level of service for the person that lives in the lower end going, my tap needs to be fixed, as opposed to going, oh, yeah, we'll get to that, but we'll go on this straight away.
Now, that's a utopian ideal because at the end of the day, it always comes back to supply and demand. If you're a plumber and you look after a low-end building and you look after a high-end building, and the high-end building is going to pay you more to fix your tap than what the low-end building is, which tap are you fixing first?
But that's making the assumption that it's the same business that's going to be looking after the same those.
All businesses face those options every day, and that's
realistically that is. So what you're saying?
What will happen is the lower end will operate within the rules of legislation and how that's legislated. Up to the line. That is how it has always been. I'm not saying it's right, but that's how it's always been. So the higher end will have more money to deliver a higher level of service.
Essentially what you're saying is that it is going to be pretty much exactly the same as what it is in America anyway.
No, that's not what I'm saying at all. You're putting words into my mouth. What I'm saying is that the lower end will be looked after at the line of where legislation requires it to be looked after, and so therefore legislation is important. Higher end will get greater levels of service because they're paying for it. You get what you pay for. And that is as true in housing as it is in chocolate bars.
Yeah, still, I'm just looking at this going, it's all well and good to go, oh yeah, we've got people in houses, but then it still leaves, if they have, and I mean, it's happened here in Australia, already it's happened when it comes to, look at how many old Queenslanders that were bought around Cannon Hill, the Gabba, Morningside, all there in order to house students, right? And those students were going, look, there's 8 of us living in this, house that originally should have been only housing, 4. There's a communal laundry, there's a communal lounge room, and a communal kitchen, right?
I'm well aware of share accommodation.
Yep, okay. But then what they're charging is something stupid, except those students aren't aware that, because they look at it and go, oh yeah, like that's good, because they compare it to what they're already experiencing in their own. And when it comes to looking after the property, the homeowner goes, oh, they're a student, it doesn't really matter.
I have seen a lot of students trash properties, number one. Number two, I also look at it and go, there is legislation that dictates how this needs to operate, right? The price that the student's paying is dictated by supply and demand. It comes back to the housing crisis and the problem that we have. The repairs in that are dictated by legislation. So if they're not operating within legislation, go and report them.
Yeah, but this is what I'm saying, that you're going to have commercial come in and be like, it's fine. Yeah. They're just renting.
So what you're complaining about is that we're going to have the exact same situation, whereas I'm going, we're at least going to have more houses to house people, or more apartments and more accommodation.
I get what you're saying, but when it comes
So what do? We just don't do anything.
Well, I mean, they're not doing anything anyway.
Well, they are. They've got 6 pilot projects.
Yeah, it's pilot.
Happening. Yeah, as in
that means that they can turn around and go, no, we're not doing it.
No, they can turn around and go, we're going to sell the apartments instead.
Yeah, so it means that they're
nonetheless,
not doing it.
They're building these buildings that are to be built to rent, right?
To be built.
They are being built at the present point in time across 6 projects. So they're being built as it currently stands, right, with the in purpose of renting. They can turn around and sell them at a later point if they want.
Let's see as to, yeah, exactly right.
But you're sitting there going, don't do it because it's going to end up...
My issue is the fact that there are so many people who are all like, it's already a shit system.
Yeah,
they know that people are going to take advantage of them. They know this. Like, the government knows this. They put all these freaking policies and legislation in, but when it comes to actually being able to fight it, guess who can fight it? The people with the money.
And the REIQ and the Residential Tenancy Authority. There's a huge number of avenues that tenants that
and meanwhile, while it's
people
being
without
fought,
funds can fight, and there's legislation to protect those people while they're fighting it, so they can't be kicked out and things like that. While there's certain things that they're fighting, right? And there's certain legislation. Talk to the RTA about it if you've got an issue. There are those protections in play. So it sounds to me like the issue is education.
I don't know. I just know that there's been, I do know people that have been taken advantage of. And even though you say, oh yeah, that, you know, you can still have things where you can still live in that property, let's face it, what happens when a landlord is pissed at the fact that they've got a tenant in there that's fighting them? What's going to happen?
Oh, they'll sell the property.
Sell the property, or what else are they going to do? They're going to drag their feet in.
Oh, look. They are, but you understand
so
that
under...
under...
So you've still got people who are living in shitty situations.
This is, again, it's an education problem. You realise that under tenancy law and things like that, you can actually... A tenant can breach the landlord for a failure to fix something in time. And as a result, that tenant can actually apply to... it's not the RTA, it's... I can't remember the name of it, but effectively it's a council of sorts, right? For a rent dispensation, and the landlord then has to pay the tenant rent for the back rent, a certain portion for the period that the property was not livable. That's my point. There's education here. There's legislation already in place. Just most people don't know about it. The problem is an education issue. It's not like, I mean, the landlord's being a dick, not a problem. Like, it is a problem. What I mean by that is, yes, that happens, but the legislation is already in place. People just don't know it.
Well, maybe that's a topic that we need to cover.
We can have a look at it.
I think you were hoping that this would be a bit more of a perkier...
Oh, you're just being difficult.
No, I'm not. I am doing what people...
No, you're sitting there going, we shouldn't do anything because bad things will happen.
I did not say that we shouldn't do anything. I'm saying that there should be a heavier policing to ensure that when it comes to high end and lower end, if they're needing people to be in there, that if there is something that needs to be fixed, that it gets fixed. It's not a...
And that's my point, is the legislation already exists for that. And there is recourse for tenants for that. There's a lot of it. It's just people don't know it and they just accept it, or they go, you know what, I can't be bothered. And they just put up with it.
Yeah, because they also know that if they kick up a stink, that then... I mean, we've had conversations with people. We had one yesterday where they're like, we're not going to say anything because they've already upped it, and we don't want them to turn around in a year and a half and then up it even further because we have brought this to their attention. And remember, it was the solar.
No,
they advertised it as having solar.
No, that's not how the conversation went. The conversation went, we're now locked in for 14 months and now's the time to bring it up. We are now going to bring it up. They didn't want to bring it up before they re-signed the lease for that reason. Now they've signed the lease, they're going to bring it up because they're locked in for 14 months.
But even still...
Like, I get it. I get what you're saying.
Like, even though they were going to go and re-sign, the fact that they didn't bring it up even for that period of time, whether it be 6 months or whatever, that they didn't bring it up, even though it was advertised as having solar.
Do you know what the solution to that is? If you're not happy with the legislation, you know what the solution to that is?
What?
Build more houses. Because then it is, because then it evens out the supply and demand. There is more supply than demand, and therefore the tenant has the power to turn around and go, you know what, I'm not going to renew, I'm moving.
There's never going to be enough housing.
Well, anyway, it's time to move on because we've gone way over time on this one.
Let's go JTM.
Let's see which rabbit holes we're going down. down in this episode. It's time for JTM. It's J Thought Moment. It might be drinking whiskey, woodwork, smoking beer, podcasting, story writing, treasure hunting, you name it. What really grinds my gears, singing, playing TV shows. As you can see, nothing's off limit. It's JTM, J Thought Moment. JTM. What will be his next shiny object? JTM. It's time for this week's J Thought Moment.
Right, this is a passion of yours.
Oh, yeah. I love it.
And I have been on this bandwagon as well. I just don't have the flair and enthusiasm like you do. But I do look at it and go, oh, this makes my job so much easier. Considering that I do the execution of a lot of the content creation and posts and stuff for people that we do work for.
Yeah.
And I do find that it does make my life easier because sitting there going, oh, I need to think of like 5 articles that I need to write.
It's such a good springboard.
I can't do it. But then giving the outline, going, help me, and then it giving you prompts, potentially even writing the whole article for you itself because you prompt it as to what you're needing for it to.
We're talking about AI for anyone going, what the hell she's talking about.
Yeah.
Look, and I think, there's so much talk out there and media love a sensational headline, right? Like every time something AI comes up, you can almost bet the house on the fact there's going to be pictures of red-eyed robots and mentions of Terminator and Skynet and all this sort of stuff.
Warning,
exactly.
Robinson.
Like it's and so this is there's this idea that AI is going to take over. The problem with this is a lack of understanding of where AI is at right now.
Can I just say something that I know that you love? Is it really AI?
Not really. Put it this way, what we're getting as the public...
I knew that he would say that.
What we're getting as the public is not really... It's particularly, for example, take ChatGPT. It's a limited language learning model, right? And it's a limited language model, sorry. It's incredibly advanced machine learning. Like, it comes down to the definition of AI too. You've got what we are calling AI at the present point in time, and then you've got what your physicists and your really, really smart scientists and AI researchers and that call artificial general intelligence. Artificial general intelligence, and one of the most common ways to define the difference between the two is, can it be goal-orientated and can it set its own goals? Right? So artificial general intelligence can create its own goal and then go and accomplish that goal.
Yeah.
AI right now that we have cannot create its own goal and go and accomplish it. It can create sub-goals based off the goal you give it.
Yeah.
Okay, and it can go and complete those sub-goals in order to complete the goal you give it. It cannot create its own goal.
Which, when you think about it, is like Facebook ads.
In a lot of ways.
Because you say, this is what I want, like this is the sort of audience that I want, this is the age bracket, this is the demographic, this is all of that sort of stuff, this is their interests. I want it to run between these times. This is how much I want you to spend.
But that's none of that's AI.
No, but the way that it actually works through the algorithm, it's learning.
Yeah, and again, it's machine learning. So that's not AI. Like, the AI that we have right now is, if you think of it like a giant library that has, I think we're up to 174 trillion data points.
So it's a really smart librarian.
And you can go and ask it for something, and it can go and pull any bit of data from any of those data points and can mash it all together to then give you an answer that pretty much looks like it's correct. And more often than not, it is, if you're prompting it correctly. It cannot create something new out of nothing.
Yeah, it has to have the data there previously.
It has to have the data there previously. It can look like it's creating something new out of nothing because it might pull data from Dan Brown's The Da Vinci Code and data from Cerulean Blue's hexagonal code makeup and combine that together in order to give a completely unique answer in order to answer a question that you've never thought anyone's even asked before. But it hasn't actually invented something out of nothing. What it's done is it's combined different data points that already existed and presented them in a way that may not have been presented before.
Yeah.
And that's...
Or explained before.
And that's where it's super, super valuable too.
Yeah.
Because you can have conversations with like a chat model like ChatGPT. You can have conversations with it and you can be asking it questions. And in a lot of ways, I kind of see it like, you know, the scene in The Matrix where Keanu Reeves jacks in and they teach him Kung Fu. And he's like, I know Kung Fu. It's like, show me. And they go into the fight scene and it's literally downloading that data. It can work in a kind of rudimentary way like that for you, in that you can have a conversation with it and it can analyze a whole heap of scientific papers. It can analyze a whole lot of data on the topic and then turn around and give you the an answer and explain something to you in a way. Like I've done this with thermodynamics. I've done it with climate change. I've done it with quantum physics, and had these incredible conversations. And I've found it significantly more beneficial for my learning and education than sitting in a lecture with a boring professor droning on who's talking about something that interests them, but in a way that's boring as batshit.
Well, the one thing that I find, because I know that there would be a lot of professions out there, like teachers, that would go, oh, it scares me because it's available to students and, you know, students should be, and I do understand that, but the information that it spits out is only as good as what the person has put into it.
Yeah, 100%.
It's exactly the same as a calculator.
100%.
If you don't put in the right information into a calculator, you're going to get the wrong answer.
Yeah. And look, I just want to highlight too, just before we jump down that particular rabbit hole, because I think it's an important rabbit hole to jump down. We're talking a lot about these language model AIs, ChatGPT, Bard, and so forth, right? That's because that's the mainstream. That's how people are using it. There's a lot more uses of current day AI technology than like we're talking analyzing big data. We're talking analyzing trends and all that sort of stuff. What I said about it can't create its own goals still applies to those AI engines that are doing that. Okay. Understand this is not the be all and end all of AI.
No.
But this is a point that everyone's kind of played with. Everyone kind of has some understanding with. So it's a really good jumping off point to discuss. Now, in regards to teachers panicking about AI, I can understand that.
Yeah.
There's one teacher that comes to mind in our oldest son's life right now who is an absolutely terrible teacher, and AI could do a better job than that particular teacher at this point in time. However, what I will say on the topic is AI at the present point is as fallible as a human teacher.
Yes.
Right? It can spit out incorrect information.
Yes.
It can also give information that's not entirely relevant, and it comes largely down to how you prompt it and how you ask.
That's what I'm saying. It's only as good as its user.
It can still create what they call AI hallucinations, where it spits back wrong data, right? And that's
artificial
intelligence hallucinations. Yeah. I'm getting jacked in, man.
Yeah. Well, it's like
I'm not jacked up. I'm jacked in.
Well, when you think of hallucinations, it's not real to begin with, and that's what artificial means.
Yeah.
So it's artificial.
I'm hallucinating a hallucination.
Yeah.
But where I think AI is going to go, I think it's actually vitally important we teach our kids. I think we need to embrace this. And I think we need to teach our kids how to use it and how to master it. And we need to adjust our education system to accommodate for it, because obviously we can't test kids in the same way that we used to, right? Well, if you think when you and I went to school, the exam's going to be on chapters 5, 6, and 7. You would cram that, and then you would regurgitate that onto a page in the exam, and you'd pass, right? You would immediately core dump most of that information out of your brain the second the exam was done, and you'd walk off, right? And you wouldn't retain a lot of it. I think AI is actually going to enhance our learning, because not only does it have access to all of that information, it also has the ability to present that information in a way that can be tailored to the individual user.
Yeah.
And that opens up the world of tailored learning plans. Now, a lot of schools talk about having a tailored learning plan. Some kind of do, but they're typically the special schools.
Yeah.
let me rephrase it. I don't mean the special schools, but I mean the schools that are really super small numbers that are specific to handling students with certain types of challenges.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, because the other thing too is the fact there is, all I have to say is that whether people like it or not, AI is here to stay.
Yeah.
And you won't be replaced, because saying that you're going to be replaced, right? Before you get on your little soapbox, I can see that your brain's going.
Yeah. Quickly get it out, because I need to correct what you've just said.
So it's not going to replace you. If you have a job where there is space in order to add this to make you better or make your life easier or tasks easier, then it should be utilized. You should understand how to do it now, because you understand how to do it now. It means that when it does become to be implemented within your workplace, you've got it covered. You're on it,
and you need to understand it. But look, I'm gonna fix.
And hold on,
because you're.
But
you're
if
wrong.
you have, well, yes and no, because if you have
there's
something
an
that
absolute
is, if you have a job that is labor intensive. Now, when I mean labor intensive, I mean tradies.
Yep.
Right. So there's parts of their job, like social media and everything like that, okay, some of them will want to be a part of, right? That they need that. So AI will help you to be able to do that. But when it comes to actually doing their job, connecting a pipe to another pipe, there needs to be human hands.
No, there doesn't. The machines already do it. 3D printing houses has come a long way.
I knew he would.
We can drone paint a house now.
But shall I just remind you of something that's happening currently within the Australian society? We don't even have the people in order to build the houses, let alone a freaking machine come in to actually do it.
Don't you think the fact we don't have the people means that we're moments away from importing those machines to do it and solve the problem?
No.
Because the machine's going to do it for far cheaper than what the humans are, and far faster and far more effectively.
Yeah, but let's be honest, the government's never going to be down for that.
It's not government, it's private enterprise. It is so profitable for private enterprise. It's about to hit the tipping point where it is commercially viable to do it. But I want to jump back to something, because you've led people up the garden path. You are going to be replaced. You are if you are not going to be replaced by AI. You're going to be replaced by somebody else, by a human who's using AI to do your job
that's
better.
What I'm saying. You should upskill now. You should get familiar
Absolutely.
with it.
If you
should
don't
understand.
upskill, you will get replaced.
Well, if you don't get replaced, you'll get left behind.
Yeah.
Which
absolutely.
means that if you're wanting those promotions, if you're sitting there going, oh, why didn't I get that? But it'll most likely be because you haven't upskilled, which is normally the reason why people don't get promotions, is because you haven't upskilled to the point that the company is needing you to be at.
Oh yeah, don't get me started on that.
They don't
have... number of people who complain, I get looked over for promotions.
They don't have the money in order to be able to spend on upskilling you, so they go with the next best option. Whether that person is good enough for the job or not is irrelevant. It's the fact that they have the knowledge that you do not.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't believe that it's going to be taught in universities, so to speak, because I just look at it and go, it's already available to everyone and to the masses. By the time that a uni gets hold of it to teach you how to do it and all the rest of it.
This is a watershed moment. This is a tipping point in history, and future generations will look back to this point. And we don't know if it's going to be a great point or if it's going to be a bad point, but for our immediate needs right now, we need to be across this. We need to be embracing this, because if we aren't...
There's a lot of people out there that's going, Sarah Connor, she was right.
Let's deal with that. Remember the whole cannot form goals of its own, right? Like this AI takeover, we need to have artificial general intelligence. Do you know, one of the precursors, in order for us to create artificial general intelligence, we need to understand how the human brain works and how consciousness works.
Yeah, we don't.
We have no idea how consciousness works. We have a hard time even agreeing on a definition of what consciousness is, let alone figuring out how it works, right? So this whole Terminator bullshit is exactly that. AI until we hit artificial general intelligence, AI is effectively going to be a zombie enhancement for a human being.
Yeah.
Right? And what I mean by a zombie is it's got no thoughts of its own. It does what you tell it to do. So therefore, if you want it to produce something of worth, you have to know how to tell it what to do.
Yeah.
And that's where it is as right now. People and I've had people go, "Oh my God, it's going to replace me." And I've given seminars and people are like, "Oh, but then it's not getting my voice." I'm like, dude,
well, teach it.
Get a video, transcribe it, upload it and say, "This is my voice," and watch it rewrite in your voice.
Yeah.
But it doesn't know your voice without you telling it or giving it the example.
Yeah.
And if you start a new conversation with it, it won't remember that.
Yeah.
Like this is, so many people don't understand how far away from AGI we actually are. And that AI right now, it's a zombie. It has no thoughts for itself. It can only do what we tell it to do. And that's, I think...
Well, it goes with any computer. Any computer is only as good as its user. So if you're sitting there going, it's not printing, it's not printing, it's not printing, have you looked as to whether you've set it up properly?
Well, don't even start on that one. I had one of those back in my tech support days. If turning it on doesn't help, try plugging it in. Look, I think AI is a significant enhancement. One of the things that I've always been...
Hold on. How long were you on that phone call before you were like, is it turned on? Is it plugged in?
It was my third question. And I was copying abuse because, I bought this printer from you and we took it home and it doesn't work. I said, "No worries, sir, I've got to go through the standard process. And look, I'm going to ask you some questions. It's going to seem like I'm insulting you. I'm not. I've just got to start with these questions because if we assume this, then, often it can be, okay, not a problem." I turned around and said, "Right, is the printer plugged into the wall?" "Of course it's plugged in," and I'm copying abuse. I'm like, "It's all right, sir, no worries." Is it, turned on at the wall?" "Of course it's on at the wall." Like, just again, ripping into me. And then it was, "So have you turned it on at the back of the printer?" And he's going, "What do you..." "Yeah, of course." Okay. And then suddenly stop and go, "Wait, what do you mean back of the printer?" I said, "There's a switch at the back of the printer, usually top right. Is that flicked? Is that switch?"
Nope.
"Oh, I've got to turn it on at the printer." "Yes, sir, you've got to turn it on at the printer. Can you flick that switch for me? Let's see if that works." Flicks the switch, it boots up and starts working. So, "Oh, that fixed it." I'm like, "No worries, so you have a good day."
So then he ends up having like 50 of the one thing coming out because he's just got this long queue.
Yeah. Anyway, so that was that. But
print.
Look, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe their artificial intelligence in its current form is smarter than some humans out there. But like,
it
an
may
enhancement.
seem obvious for you, but it's not obvious for someone else.
I don't know. If you want something to work that's electronic, turning it on does kind of seem like step one.
Yeah, but he probably wasn't aware that there was a button at the back.
Obviously not. But anyway, moving on. I think the biggest thing, one of the things I've done 1,000 times over the last 10 years.
Is set up printers?
No, I've done that far more than 1,000. No, is build social media marketing strategies.
Yeah.
Right? I'm pretty handy at it. I've built social media
right?
marketing strategies for ASX listed companies that have been executed and worked incredible.
Yeah.
Right? Generated millions in revenue, billions in sales and so forth. And what I've found, to give the example, it would normally take me 2 weeks to put together a social media marketing strategy, an effective one, normally. Partly because my brain, being Aspie, I stare at the blank screen, my brain exits the room. And I'd have to really force myself to do it. But also because, look, these things require intense research, intense understanding, and so forth. With AI, I can get the AI to ask me questions about the client and about what we want to do and how this plan should look. And I've got a full plan with so I've got a full strategy and an execution plan built in 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Now, the content of that plan and execution strategy,
come from your noggin.
They come from my noggin, right? From it's my knowledge.
Yeah.
But the AI has then collated it and put it in a format that would take me a week to put into that format, just because my, so it enhances what you do.
Yeah.
And if you're an expert in the topic, it is going to speed you up.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be able to pick when it spits out something that's wrong and that doesn't work.
Well, obviously you read through it still.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I still
proofread.
tweak it. I still tweak it when I proofread and fix bits and pieces up and stuff. But it's taking me 45 minutes to do that. As opposed to 2 weeks.
Yeah. So when you think of it, that's what I'm saying is that when it comes to not only upskilling, if your work that you do, if you have the capability of pumping stuff out quicker, of course your company, whoever you work for, is going to turn around and go, okay, number one, you're getting stuff out when we need it.
And the tools for it are just improving.
The quality that you're actually producing is a lot better.
Yep.
So that promotion, what have you used? I've used AI. Sweet.
There will be pushback initially. So one of the tricks. Hang on, let me explain this to help avoid the tricks. One of the tricks will be, so it's not you, it's the AI. No, it's me. The process that I use to ensure that what it's pumping out is my smarts.
Yeah.
Right, my strategy.
But it's not plagiarism.
It's not plagiarism, but it's not even that. It's if you walk up to the AI and you say, "I want you to write me an article on headphones," it'll spit out an article on headphones, and it'll be generic as all hell.
Oh yeah,
like
it'll explain to you as to what headphones are.
It'll be beige, and it'll be boring. If you go up to it and you say, "Hey, in a minute, you're going to write an article on the differences between the latest Bose noise-cancelling headphones and the latest Sony noise-cancelling headphones. And in order to get the information to write this article, you are going to ask me a series of questions about these products and the differences between them. One question at a time. And then once I've answered all your questions, you're going to analyze the information I give you, and then you're going to write the article."
Yeah.
Right? That article is then going to be super specific, super accurate, as long as you're accurate.
Yeah.
And it's your knowledge. It's like having an executive assistant with all of these different skills, right? It's your knowledge coming out. The AI is just putting it in a format that you probably couldn't put it in anywhere near the same level of efficacy.
Yeah.
And that's the value of it. It's not about replacing your knowledge. And there are thousands of people, millions of people out there who are using it to replace their knowledge. And a lot of them have turned around and gone, "Oh, it's shit. It's pumping out crap." Well, yeah, that's because you're asking it crap and you're not giving it the expertise.
It's because you're crap.
Yeah, pretty much, right? So if you're using it to drag that expertise out of you, it's going to then be able to create whatever it is you need to create far faster and far more accurately than what you could if you were doing it as a human who gets tired and fatigues and so forth. And that's where the super benefit right now is, in my opinion. I mean, there's all the benefits of being able to chop up videos and products that, will create reels and products that will create imagery and replace imagery. All that, those AI, they're awesome.
Yeah.
I'm loving playing with the new Photoshop AI background replace. That's a lot of fun. But in day-to-day in work life, particularly in business, and even if you are a trader who wants to grow their business, go and build a business plan. Get it to ask you about your business, right? And have it build you a business plan for you to execute. Like, this is the value of AI today. And where you would hire a lot of people and pay a lot of money, the AI can actually fill that gap for you.
Yeah. Again, upskill people, get amongst it.
Yeah, it's incredibly valuable.
Okay, well, we'll see you around like rissoles.
Yeah.